Uther Pendragon battles the Duke of Cornwall in medieval England. Merlin obtains the legendary sword Excalibur from the Lady of the Lake and delivers it to Uther in order to bring about peace. Cornwall gives in and acknowledges Uther as king after being moved by this sign of authority and Uther's assurance of territory. The tenuous ceasefire is broken as Uther is unable to conceal his lust. Uther surrounds the castle of Cornwall. He again requests Merlin's help. He receives Igraine from Merlin, but that evening, Uther's warriors lure Cornwall from his stronghold before executing him in an ambush. Uther is changed by Merlin to resemble Cornwall. As Cornwall is dying, Uther enters the castle, makes savage love to Igraine, and impregnates her. Igraine gives birth to a son 9 months later. As agreed upon, Merlin, who hasn't been seen since the evening Cornwall died, shows up and takes the infant. Igraine is distressed when Uther tries to stop Merlin from entering the woodland, but is assailed by knights who are still devoted to Cornwall. Uther, who is mortally wounded, rams Excalibur into a stone and declares that only he will possess the sword. Merlin casts a spell while he is standing nearby to seal the sword inside the stone until Arthur is mature enough to take possession of it. Every year, a joust is held to determine who will be able to attempt. The victor is declared king. Kay, the son of Sir Ector, is joined by Arthur, Kay's squire. Goes to the stone and pulls it out. The crowd is shocked to find that Arthur has taken the sword away. Ector says that Merlin brought Arthur to him as a baby and asked him to raise and guard the boy. Since Arthur is not a knight, many of the other knights refuse to acknowledge him as their monarch. Only Leondegrance recognizes Arthur as the legitimate winner. Merlin guides Arthur to Leondegrance's castle, which is under siege by the other knights. Arthur puts up a valiant struggle, but ultimately succeeds when he kneels to ask one of the rebel knights, Uriens, to make up for the fact that he is not a knight himself. The following evening, Arthur starts courting Leondegrance's daughter Guinevere. The most powerful knights in the nation have joined Arthur's brotherhood. Among them is Lancelot, who earlier gave Arthur a valuable lesson in humility. All of Arthur's knights had been vanquished by Lancelot, the best knight in the world. Arthur himself had only triumphed by using the mysterious powers of Excalibur. Arthur had mishandled the sword, which is why it broke. When Arthur realized his mistake and asked for forgiveness, the Lady of the Lake gave him back Excalibur in its hold. Lancelot pledged his loyalty to Arthur. Lancelot continues to live in self-imposed exile in order to protect his and Guinevere's honor. Arthur weds Guinevere, founds the Round Table, and brings about peace throughout the realm. Another inhabitant of the castle, Morgana Le Fay, Arthur's half-sister, is aware of this reality. She prods Gawain into accusing Lancelot and Guinevere of adultery. He challenges Lancelot, who is not present, to a duel. Perceval, Lancelot's squire, is knighted so he might compete in place of Lancelot, but at the last second, Lancelot shows up and defeats Gawain. Then, after struggling with his illicit desires for Guinevere in the forest the previous evening, he succumbs to a self-inflicted wound. Guinevere has meantime entered the woodland covertly in search of Lancelot. They kiss and then go to sleep. Morgana and Merlin both witness Arthur finding them and driving Excalibur into the ground between them rather than killing them. That evening, Morgana assumes the persona of Guinevere, engages in sexual activity with an insane Arthur, and bears him a child. The Holy Grail will heal Arthur and the realm, so Arthur sends his knights on a journey to find it. The majority of them perish on their quest for the Holy Grail. Morgana and her son, Mordred, lure most of the knights into a lair, and she seduces them into drinking a potion and then eventually hangs them from a tree until they are dead. However, Perceval is able to escape after the spurs on another hanged knight's armor gradually cut the rope holding him. He recognizes Lancelot and tries to plead with him to return. With the Holy Grail, Perceval returns to Camelot. When Arthur drinks from it, the nearby land comes to life and Arthur regains his health. He pays Guinevere a visit. Following her adultery, she went to a nun. Having kept Excalibur with her throughout the years, she gives it back to him. Arthur has been challenged to the throne by Mordred, who has amassed a sizable army largely made up of Saxons. The evening before the fight, Arthur asks Merlin for assistance. Morgana is duped into reversing her spells by Merlin, who shows up as a wraith inside her tent. Smoke streams from her mouth, covering both the camp and the battlefield. Mordred kills his mother by strangling her. The following morning, despite being greatly outnumbered, Arthur's soldiers confront and defeat Mordred's army at Camlan thanks to Morgana's smoke release. They are helped by Lancelot's timely intervention, during which he kills numerous Saxons by himself. After receiving forgiveness from a grateful Arthur, Lancelot passes away at peace. Mordred and Arthur come face to face with destiny. Mordred pierces Arthur with a large lance and Arthur makes his way to Mordred and drives Excalibur into his heart, killing him instantly, ending Mordred's reign of terror. Perceval is instructed to take Excalibur and drop it into the nearest body of quiet water by dying Arthur. Perceval refuses and returns to King Arthur. Returning to the lake, Perceval throws the sword into the water, where it is seized by the Lady of the Lake and submerged. Perceval returns to Camlan in time to witness the Fates sailing to Avalon with the body of Arthur. And that concludes the legendary story of King Arthur and the mighty sword Excalibur. I hope you enjoyed this synopsis. Thank you.